All right, today we're going to cool back the curtain on how doctors basically become detectives. They use a child's arms and hands to read the incredibly complex map of their nervous system. It's a process called the Pediatric Upper Limb Exam, and really, it's all about sharp observation.
So, think about a detective walking onto a crime scene. But here, the clues aren't things like footprints or fingerprints. No, they're found in something as simple as a child's handshake or a reflex, maybe even just a basic movement. Every single observation is another piece of the puzzle, and it all comes together to tell the story of that child's neurological health.
So, you might be surprised to hear that this whole investigation kicks off before any medical tools even come out of the bag. It really starts with a simple human connection. A friendly hello helps put the child at ease, but that very first handshake, well, that's the first real piece of evidence.
That one handshake can tell you a surprising amount about muscle strength, even the texture of the skin on their hand. And a smile? It's never just a smile in this context. It's a quick check for facial symmetry. The whole time, the doctor is scanning for these really subtle clues, things like a squint or maybe some thinning of the hand muscles. That could be a sign of something called myopathy, which is a condition that affects the muscle fibers.
Okay, so before the doctor even gets hands-on with the exam, they run through this really quick mental checklist. It's called the 4Ds. Think of it as a fast, systematic scan of both the child and the room they're in. It's all about gathering that crucial context.
So let's break down what those 4Ds actually mean. First up is dimension. Is the child's height and weight what you'd expect for their age? Then dysmorphism. Are there any unusual physical features? Next is distress. Is the child showing any signs of being in pain? And finally, devices. This is just spotting any aids in the room, like a wheelchair, maybe splints. And this whole scan happens in just a few seconds, but it builds this amazing picture before the physical exam has even really started.
All right, so with those initial observations in the bag, it's time to narrow the focus. Now we're looking specifically at the upper limbs. The child's arms and shoulders are exposed, which lets the doctor get a much closer, more detailed inspection.
And this part of the inspection is guided by another handy little tool, the mnemonic SSB. So the S stands for symmetry. Are both arms looking identical? The second S is for scars, which can tell you a lot about past injuries or surgeries. And the B, that's for the back. You always check the back because problems there can absolutely show up in the arms.
Okay, now we get to the hands-on part of the investigation, and we're starting with something called muscle tone. Now don't confuse this with strength. Tone is all about the muscle's resting state. Is it relaxed and kind of pliable, or is it stiff and resistant? That subtle difference in tension gives some really important clues about the nerve signals that are reaching those muscles.
So, how do they check for this? Well, the doctor will gently move the child's relaxed arm. They'll do a little roll of the wrist, they'll bend and straighten the elbow, and they'll rotate the shoulder. The whole time, they're just feeling for any unexpected stiffness or, on the flip side, maybe too much floppiness. It's a really delicate, hands-on test.
Okay, so we've gone from that passive test of tone to an active test of power, and this one is all about pure strength. The big question now is, how well can the child's muscles actually work when there's some resistance?
And of course, making this fun for the kid is absolutely key. A perfect example is testing the shoulder muscles. A doctor might ask them to make like Spider-Man and shoot some webs, or maybe spread their wings. And as the child holds their arms out, the doctor just applies a little gentle pressure. It's a great way to test those specific muscles, and it just feels like a game.
So this strength test moves really systematically, right down the arm. When they get to the elbow, it turns into a push-me-pull-me game. The wrist gets tested in pretty much the same way, and it all ends up at the fingers with that classic request. Okay, squeeze my fingers as hard as you can and don't let go.
Now, it's important to know that muscle strength isn't just graded as strong or weak. It's actually measured on a really precise scale that goes from 0 to 5. So a 5 is totally normal power. A 3, for example, means the muscle can move against gravity, but not much else. And this grading system is so important because it lets doctors track even really subtle changes over time with amazing accuracy.
All right, next up, reflexes. These are the body's automatic responses. Everyone knows the classic knee-jerk reflex. Well, it works the same in the arm. A quick tap with a little reflex hammer sends a signal zipping to the spinal cord and right back out again. The response you get, or maybe the response you don't get, is a super direct test of the body's wiring.
So there are three main reflexes that get tested in the arm. You've got the biceps reflex, the triceps reflex at the back of the arm, and the brachioradialis, which is down near the wrist. And what's cool is that each tap is testing a completely different nerve pathway, giving you even more clues about how the nervous system is doing.
So, strength and reflexes, that's one thing. But how well does the brain actually conduct the whole orchestra? Well, that's where coordination comes in. This part of the exam is all about testing the brain's ability to direct smooth, precise, and really controlled movements. And coordination is checked with just a few simple tasks. You've got the classic finger-to-nose test, which is all about accuracy. Then rapidly tapping your thumb to each finger tests fine motor speed. And then there's a test with a really big name, dysdiadokinesia. But don't worry, it's actually super simple. It's just flipping your hands back and forth really quickly. This tests how well the brain can switch between opposite muscle groups. And now for the final piece of this hands-on puzzle, sensation. Basically, are the nerves that are supposed to carry the sense of touch doing their job correctly? And to figure that out, the doctor just needs to know if the child can feel a very light touch in some specific spots on their arms and hands. You know, sensation isn't random at all. It's actually laid out in this really precise map on your body. Using something soft, like a piece of cotton, the doctor tests these specific zones called dermatomes. Now, each dermatome is wired to a specific nerve root in the neck. So, for example, the thumb is connected to the C6 nerve root, but the little finger is connected to C8. This map lets the doctor pinpoint exactly where a problem might be coming from. Now, here's something really important to remember. This exam is never, ever done in a vacuum. The findings from the arm, they're just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. Everything the doctor learns here helps them decide which other pieces of that puzzle they need to look at next.
Yep, it is all about connecting the dots. If the clues they find in the arm point towards a potential issue, the investigation just expands. The doctor will then check the back, maybe the lower limbs, and even the cranial nerves. What they're doing is searching for a pattern, piecing everything together to get a complete picture of the child's neurological health.
So, from just a simple handshake all the way to the top of a reflex hammer, you can see this exam is really a masterclass in clinical detective work. Every single step is like a question being asked of the nervous system, and every response is another clue. And when you put them all together, these small clues tell a really big story. They allow doctors to read the body's hidden wiring and bring even the most subtle issues right out into the open.